Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Zepp, and we are here with the review for the Will of the People album by Muse, the 9th studio album that they have released. And boy, oh boy, do I have my thoughts on this one. So if you have been watching my reactions to the songs on the Will of the People album reactions that have gone up on my channel just a couple of weeks ago, you will know that my feelings with this album have been rather mixed, more so leaning onto the negative. Now, there are things that I am aware of that I'm not necessarily going to go into, like a lot of people's main point that they'll come back out to me that, you know, I've already heard in a comment section before a couple of times, is that they said it's a best of album. It's a best of album, and I am aware of that, but I am judging it, you know, as an album because they haven't necessarily advertised it as a best of album. You go and you watch an interview with them, they'll say, yeah, they are inspired by doing like a best of type of idea, but in the advertising of the album, it hasn't really been put forward as a best of, and I want to judge it separately in terms of as an album and the songs. I kind of want to make that clear definition going into this one, and in this one we will also kind of discuss where this album I think ranks among the rest of the albums, and is it in the bottom three or the top three. I think you guys already know it's not going to be in the top three, but where will this rank among the rest of their discography, and how will this album age in comparison to other albums going forward into the future? So folks, we're not going to do too many more cuts and pauses in this because I want to keep this quite a free-flowing review. I want to keep it kind of off the top of my head. I don't want to be cutting things out. I want it to be a raw type of reaction or review of this album so you really understand my feelings, and I'm not then trying to, in the editing process, cut it up to make it, I don't know, maybe because I changed my opinion or I'm worried about what people will think. I want to kind of give my raw, unfiltered thoughts on this album because, again, I think it may lead to just more honesty from my part. Now, before we get into how I feel about the album overall, we got to go through the track list, right? Right? Right. God. I said not going to make any cuts, and then I speak like that. Holy moly. Anyway, track number 1, Will of the People. Will of the People is a track that is a lot of fun, but I think lacks a lot of the oomph that you like to hear from a Muse opener. Again, you go back to that thing of it's supposed to be a best of album. We're not really going for any structure, but for the opening of this as an album, Will of the People, you could argue if the Will of the People album had been following the theme that the album was sort of giving off, this kind of start laughing at the end of the world, like we are fucking fucked again, sort of ends with that theme. Kill or Be Killed is in there, Compliance is in there, this sort of sarcastic boppy style, looking at the end of the world rather than being necessarily overly dramatic about it, which is what they had been in the past. And I believe I did say that in my Will of the People review on the album reaction, that if this was setting the tone, it was a good opener, but ultimately it didn't really set the tone because we didn't really have any consistency within the album itself, and therefore the song, in terms of the structure of the album, just sticks out like a sore thumb because, as I said again, if Will of the People, sarcastic, laughing at the end of the world view throughout the album, good opener. But because it's not, because the album isn't like that, the song Will of the People really doesn't offer anything unique for its opening. It doesn't tell us how the album is going to be going forward. It is just a boppy, sarcastic tone of the end of the world that, yeah, is fun live. I've seen the videos of it live. Definitely a fun song. It's not the worst on the album by any means, but I don't think that highly of it whatsoever in terms of a song that I'd actively listen to by them. But I think it falls under the category of inoffensive. And as we move on to Compliance, this is a song that actually grew on me quite a bit, but this is where I go into some of the issues that I have with this album in terms of the production. I did mention that in my last reaction video to We Are Fucking Fucked, that the production on certain points of the album just feels weird, and that's a kind of bad considering that Muse's best point usually in their songwriting, regardless of the quality of the song itself, is that it has really high production, a really high quality production, but I don't really feel that from a couple of songs in this album, and Compliance is one of them. Compliance, again, I think it's one that is inoffensive, but definitely at the time it came out, it is weird, right? And again, fans will keep reiterating It was supposed to be a best of. It's best of. It's best of. I follow a lot of Muse stuff. I'm not the most knowledgeable on them, like the number one top 1%, but I'm in the top 10% probably. And before the album came out, when they were talking about writing their next album, getting ready to write their next album, and around when Won't Stand Down came out, they were talking about this being their heaviest album yet. They were talking about it being a return to heavy, that they were liking the balance between going from experimental to rock. They enjoyed that sort of bouncing between. And that was the story that we were getting until Compliance came out. And after Compliance came out, they started talking about, yeah, well, it's a best of album, it's a mix. I had someone say in the comments of a video I commented on that they didn't actually say it was a rock album. That was fans hyping it up. They insinuated it was going to be a rock album. They heavily pushed it as a rock album. And Muse kind of have this thing as of late, which I kind of find really shady about them, is that whenever they have a rock song, they advertise themselves so much as rockers. Rock. We're rock stars. Yada yada yada. And then, like, they'll feature on the magazines, all the rock magazines, Rolling Stone, as rock. They'll be holding the guitar up, yeah, we're rock. But then, like, only 3 songs from the album will actually be, 3 or 4 songs will actually be really rock based. The rest is just whatever. It was the same with Simulation Theory. There was really no rock elements there whatsoever. But whenever they do have a rock song, it's like they're literally like, hey, Muse fans from 15 years ago, we done something you might like. Come back for a while, please. Buy the album. You won't like it, but buy it. We have a rock song on it. And you're just there, like, it feels like every rock song almost feels like pandering, where it's like, oh, right, we'll give them what they want. We'll do this. We'll give them what they want. But when Compliance came out, I feel like it was very negatively received, because it was like a massive shock to the system, because we had Won't Stand Down. We thought, yeah, they're doing a rock album, but they're actually going to do like a different rock album. It's gonna be better than Drones. They're going to experiment within rock again. And Compliance came out, and that's when we started worrying. And to be honest, if you were a Muse rock fan who listened to this album, I think you had every right to be worried, because this album did not satiate your needs whatsoever, which it's really disappointing. You know, it's really disappointing when they do things like that, like the idea of them kind of giving hopes up. And again, a lot of people they'll deny it happened. They'll deny, oh no, the album wasn't going to be a rock album. They never said that. They insinuated that. They insinuated that. And again, which is fine, weird. Matt Bellamy's always on about listening to Slipknot, listening to all these rock bands. Again, he mentions listening to some pop artists sometimes, but he still seems to be all into his rock, and yet a lot of pop writing in here, which is annoying. Anyway, that's rant number 1 done. We're going to move on quick through the track list. Number 3, Liberation, bottom 3 songs in the album, probably the second worst in my opinion. I think this is definitely where the album reaches into parody territory. At its best times, which the song does have good moments, it sounds like a genuinely nice tribute to Queen with some decent production. At the worst of times, which is definitely the majority of the time, it sounds like a way worse version of the United States of Eurasia, which in my opinion isn't one of their best songs to begin with by any means. I think it bounces all over the place. It's just... It's weird. I don't think it works. Again, if you want to judge it within the context of an album, it doesn't work in its placement whatsoever. But again, I know a lot of people aren't going to judge it in that, but I am, because it's an album. And I think Liberation is a terrible song that's quite grating to the ears. It's kind of, again, I've always said about Muse, you know, not liking a band or not liking Muse for being cheesy is like not liking chips for being crispy. You know, they are cheesy, but this just threw into the territory of parody territory. It sounded like they were parodying. God, I can't speak today. It sounds like a parody of themselves, and I don't think it works. I think it's in the bottom 2 for me. One thing I will say about this album is that it definitely in the second half begins to pick up. I think that first 3 is a horrific first 3, and probably the worst 3 out of any Muse album, dare I say it. The worst first 3. But anyway, moving on to Won't Stand Down. Won't Stand Down is a song that I think is really good, has not very good elements in there at times, but good elements. It's one of the better songs that they've written in the last 8 or 9 years. It's a song that, you know, I worry about the longevity of this album. It's aged maybe just even already just a little bit on the wouldn't want to listen to this loads more type of way, but I think overall it's a good song. I think you have to give credit where credit is due. Again, it revels in cheese at times, but it's got nice guitar work. It flows well. Production is nice, although again, I do understand why people wouldn't like the production as much on it. Again, one of the criticisms you could have of this album is that it feels like the band recorded this separately. It feels like the bassist wasn't too involved because the bass is very subdued in a lot of parts in this album, especially production-wise, which I think is a big no-no with Muse. You need that bass to stand out and be prominent. And there's at times where you're just like, give me a little more bass. And it isn't there a lot of the time in this album. But Won't Stand Down, I think it's a good song, and you got to put it up as probably the top 3 or 4 within the album. Then you have Ghost, How Can I Move On? Ghost is a song I wasn't originally a big fan of whatsoever, and again, I feel like on the pacing of the album, it's very weird. Matt Bellamy even thought of himself that it shouldn't be on the album. That was more of a one he was thinking of releasing on his own, but the drummer really liked it. The drummer was kind of the head of the production on this album and putting the album together. The drummer really liked it, wanted it on the album, so they were like, right, fair enough. Which, again, I think is weird because that means you only have 9 songs that actually have the band members on the album, which only having 9 on a full album with the whole band involved is a bit strange. Again, I know I talked about them, you know, they should only be doing 5 or 6, but 10 is quite low for them, and the runtime of that as well is quite low for them. So also to then strip band members out of one of the songs feels a bit strange to me. But I wouldn't really complain. I do think the song would have been more fitting on a Matt Bellamy EP, if I'm perfectly honest. But the song has grown on me a little bit. I think that the topic of the song as well is very interesting. And, you know, I think, again, it's inoffensive, but bordering more so on the good side. I'd put it in the top half of the album, definitely. It's a nice little song. Again, doesn't suit the album whatsoever. Doesn't suit the tone. And we'll get into that at the end when I talk about the album overall. But again, I don't think you can complain about this one too much. Then you go on to You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween. Now, a lot of people may be thinking that I'm going to slate this song on retrospective, but actually looking at the song, I think the song is the perfect blend of Muse going into pop. If Muse were to ever to do pop camp style of music, then they really, this is the type of stuff that they should be doing. I mean, it feels a bit like Panic Station in a way. It's fun. It's well produced. The production on it is nice. It has cool moments in there. I genuinely think it's a good song. Again, a lot of maybe hardcore old-fashioned Muse fans wouldn't like me saying that and don't like the song at all, but I really do think it's a good Muse pop song. I think that song could slide, maybe not into the Second Law theme-wise, but in terms of maybe just sound, it could slide right into there absolutely no problem. And if Muse wanted to do an album where it was more kind of upbeat and almost funk based, that was just like essentially pop, but they've done it around songs that sound like this, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's just that I think as well, a lot of the songs that they do that are pop aren't even good pop. I think sometimes when they have their worst songs, it's good pop, because you can get away with cheesy, I think, when it comes to rock, but if you go cheesy in pop, then you are bottom of the barrel. And because Muse kind of revel in cheese so much that when they do go to do pop and it goes wrong, like I'll say again, Get Up and Fight, you have like not even like a good pop song on like a pop song standard. And again, I know I'm talking very derivative of pop songs, but you know what I mean. I'm talking from the rock point of view. I like pop songs, you know, there are certain ones I really like, but I'm just talking from the headspace of someone who would view Muse as a rock band and be viewing this album from a rock point of view. That's kind of where I'm talking about. But anyway, after that we move on to Kill or Be Killed, which is the best song Muse have wrote since Reapers and the Handler. Arguably the best song they've wrote since, God, I mean, album 4, potentially, if you didn't like anything from Drones. I think this song, I think Kill or Be Killed, I would actually like, I think the best Muse songs of the last 10 years have been Reapers, The Handler, and Kill or Be Killed. And then I think under that, you've got the Dark Side. Just under that, you've got the Dark Side, Algorithm. I really like Animals from the Second Law. I like Supremacy as well. The Second Law is an album that's massively grown on me the more and more I've listened to it. Which, again, I think speaks to the album quality that, you know, you have Drones and Simulation Theory and perhaps this that'll age poorly. Yet the Second Law, an album that was probably hated by Muse fans when it came out because it really delved into the first real delving into the non-rock side of them. Yeah, I think it's an album that's aged way better. So, but anyway, that's a tangent. But I think Killer Be Killed is a fantastic song, really cool elements. Again, production questionable at times in terms of what you'd maybe like to hear from a Muse song, but ultimately I think it works. I think it's got really cool elements in there. It's a song I cannot wait to hear live. I've bought tickets to Glasgow. I'm really hoping they come to Ireland still and I'll sell the Glasgow tickets, but I didn't want to take the risk. So when Glasgow tickets came out, it was an easy way over to Glasgow because I'm near the top of Ireland. So I thought I'll take that. Although they're playing like in a park, which I don't like. I think Muse really revel in a stadium, like in an enclosed sound in an arena, so you can hear the best sound experience. Like if you're at a live show and you end up at the back of the park when they're playing, I think you'll miss out on a lot of what makes them so good, which is their excellent sound live. But again, more tangents. After Killer Be Killed, we move on to Verona, and Verona is a song I actually quite like. It sounds like an 80s cheesy U2 song, and I don't even like U2, but you know what? I enjoy Verona, weirdly, and I don't think there's much more I can say other than that. I enjoy it. I think it's a fun song, and I think people might put it in the bottom three. I wouldn't. I actually quite enjoy Verona, if I'm completely honest, and I've nothing more to say about it other than that. And then after, folks, we move on to Euphoria, and Euphoria, I hate it. I don't like it. I like the verses. I like the pre-chorus, but I hate that chorus so much. I really dislike that chorus. It's get up and fight vibes 101, and that puts the song way down in my estimation. Again, I understand why people like it, but I can't get around in that chorus. I'm sorry, but it's not for me. And then lastly, we have We Are Fucking Fucked, which I think is a song that I thought was going to be better than it was. It had good elements in it. Again, there's a little bit of Nights of Sidonia in there. The lyrics are borderline laughable at times, but if you overlook them, you have a pretty fun drive song that's going to be cool live. But my God, if they try to put this in as the replacement to Nights of Sidonia live or something, or they try to make this a gig ender, I will go up there and slap them personally. It is not that. It is a cool song, good song, definitely within the top 3 or 4 of the album, but do not replace Nights of Sidonia if they even have the thought of that. And ladies and gentlemen, that is where we have our album. So if I was to give my top 3, I'd say it would be Killer Be Killed, Won't Stand Down, and then a tie between You Make Me Feel Like It's Halloween and We Are Fucking Fucked. And then after that, we'd move into, I'd say, Verona being next. And then we'd have Will of the People, Compliance, and then the bottom ones, I think, would be Ghosts and Euphoria. I think I did say Ghosts was... Or did I already mention Ghost? Apologies, just doing that off the top of my head. One's like Ghost is alright, but just not for me. But again, I'd appreciate it on a Matt Bellamy EP. Liberation, I really don't like. Euphoria, I really don't like. So when it comes to songs that I really dislike, there's only 2 on the album. But this is where I was telling you guys before in all my reactions prior that I want to differentiate between how I feel about the songs on an individual level. God, can't speak. And how I feel about the album. Not taking into account that this is a best of, and I'm talking at this point onwards from not taking into account, it is an atrocious structure of an album. It does not feel like a Muse structure whatsoever. You expect some form of pacing and clarity and storyline and progression from a Muse album. They've always done it so well. There's none of that here. The songs are all over the place. Again, you really are verging on parody at times with the songs on an individual level, but then you look at it as an album and it's just, it's like just trying to guess what album this is from, because then sometimes it doesn't even sound like good. Like as I said about Liberation being one of the United States Eurasia, it just doesn't even sound like a good inspiration of, best of type of thing. I think if they really wanted this album to lean more into the best of, they should have advertised it more as a best of, rather than kind of going with the Will of the People theme and having the album have a certain theme, because again, it reeks of simulation theory of where, yeah, we're really delving into this theme aesthetically wise, but then sonically they don't actually do it too much. I think, yeah, I just think the album is a mess. I think you could look at a simulation theory light, where it's not even as good as simulation theory. And I think in terms of an album as a whole, I've been a fan of Muse ever since, I think, Psycho or Dead Inside was first released as a single before the Drones album came out. I had heard a lot of their music beforehand, but I'd never delved into loving music until I was about 14, 15, which was when that came out. So that's when I really got into them. So I've had 3 album releases: Drone, Simulation Theory, and Will of the People, and this has been by far the most disappointing. And that's kind of tough to say as well, because Simulation Theory, again, I really like synthwave, dark 80s music, or 80s inspired music. It's a genre I quite like. So when I heard Muse were going into that, I thought, yes, this will suit you both perfectly. And again, you have songs like The Dark Side Algorithm, The Void, like they work, and as you can hear that Muse work within this genre incredibly well. They can, but the album as a whole just didn't commit to that sound whatsoever, and it really disappointed me. But that disappointed me because it wasn't sticking to the theme. This album just disappointed me because it wasn't sticking to anything. It doesn't feel like an album. It feels like a collage of songs that are probably an 8 at their very best, with Kill or Be Killed, but 70% of them would be down at a 5. I think it's a best of album. It's a collab. It's the thing. Oh, it's a celebration of all things Muse. But I think you're verging on 70 to 75% the bad things, celebrating the bad things, and 25% celebrating the good things. I think the album, I think, sort of captures everything that people don't like about Muse, with every now and then putting in songs like Kill or Be Killed, or like Won't Stand Down, or arguably We Are Fucking Fucked, that remind you of the good things Muse can do. But like, if you were a Muse hater and you were trying to pick in an album to prove why people shouldn't like them, if you're one of those guys like, yo, guys, I know this is my opinion, but you shouldn't like Muse, and I'm going to show you why, this is the album I think that those people would pick, because it's a mess. It's a mess. It's horrific to say. I don't like saying it because I really like these guys, but I genuinely think the album is a mess. And going forward, I really don't know what I want from them now, because like, I've lost a bit of faith in them, if I'm perfectly honest. I don't see another rock album. I mean, acoustic album maybe, but even full albums, again, I've said before, just do EPs. Do an EP in 2 years' time, and then take another 3-4 years and write another album, and then have that be album 10. Wouldn't it be cool if they'd done like the 10th album's their last album? Let's face it, they've been around for years. Do like album 10, and it's just self-titled. Album 10 is called Muse, and it's a homage to their first album. They're inspired from their first album, and they do this like weird grunge rock type of thing, and then they round it out and they just become a live band. Or they do, Will of the People, okay, I think I mentioned this before, or I was thinking this to myself, and maybe I mentioned it, I don't know, this would have been an amazing idea. Take half of the songs out of Will of the People. They said they wanted to be the best of, a celebration of them. Take half of the songs out of Will of the People, so you're left with 5 songs, and put in 5 or 6 remasters of B-sides, like Easily and Eternally Missed. Just get a couple of B-sides and whack them on there. Sort of like the Hullabaloo soundtrack is essentially a B-sides. Do proper remasters of the B-sides. I think that would have been amazing. I would have loved that, because some of their B-sides have their best work. And I can tell you something right now. A lot of their B-sides are better than half the songs on this album. I think from B-sides, you beat Compliance, you beat Liberation, you beat Euphoria, you probably beat Verona. Again, you don't really beat Ghosts, but Ghosts, again, Matt Bellamy EP, that's where Ghosts would belong. I think you really would have had a 12. You could have had a 12-song banger of an album if you done remasters, re-releases of B-sides and had them be album songs, because they do have some B-sides that are album song quality. Sort of like how Radiohead had when they re-released OK Computer, and they released a lot of the B-sides, and one or two of the B-sides were like almost better than what was on the original album. So, folks, that's how I feel. If I was to give the album a review out of 10, I would give it a 6, maybe a 5.5. And again, that is as an album. I think if you were to take the album song by song, I think you're giving it more as a 7. But I do have to drop it because I think just, yeah, the album structure is horrible. It doesn't work as an album. And I worry a lot about how this album will age. I do not see this album aging well at all, but only time will tell, folks. I apologize that it's been so negative, but that is just how I feel. That is how I feel about the album. But make sure to let me know how you feel, guys. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. It's been an interesting conversation. And I hope you guys who are big fans of the album won't like sit and maybe unsubscribe or be really offended by what I've said, because as I've said before, I'm here just to kind of have a conversation, to give my point of view and on how I feel about these things. And, you know, I've always felt the Muse fan base has been quite good to me. I've had fan bases at times where anytime I've said anything negative, what's your musical background? It's like I don't need to be a tasting expert to know whether I like the taste of something or I don't like the taste of something. And I can try and explain why I don't, but like, I'm not the biggest expert. Musical family, I know a bit about my music, but I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just a fan, talking from my fans' perspective, trying to articulate as best as I can my feelings on the particular matter. But folks, thank you very much for sticking with me. 26 minutes now, we're on, about to hit 27. Wow. Well, for me anyway, recording, we're probably going to be 26 minutes anyway. But you guys, thank you for sticking through this entire video if you have, and make sure to stick around for more content in the future. We're going to switch up how we do things around here. If you like all my reaction videos, it may be a case of videos going up every second day from now on, and because things will begin to change. Because for those of you who don't know, I do a lot of Call of Duty casting content and presentation, or Call of Duty content on competitive, whether it be commentating or playing over on my Twitch. And it'll be just over a month that the new Call of Duty is out by the time this video comes out. So me and Katana Gaming will be doing preparation going forward for getting ready for that game. So if you are interested in that stuff at all or want to check it out, please go down to the link below and go and check out my Twitch. Folks, thank you very much for watching. Love you guys, and I hope to see you guys again in the future for more Muse stuff. We'll do more Muse stuff in the future, and I guarantee more Muse stuff that we do would err a little more on the positive side. So folks, take care. Have a good one. Peace.